Hello BookTube. For this Tag Tuesday, I'm going to be doing my Problematic Fav Book Tag. The tag was created by Hygen Starlight, and I saw it on KD Books' channel. And I will leave links to both down below. Anywho, so let's get uncomfortable, because some of these questions will probably lead to uncomfortable answers. But uncomfortable is sometimes a good thing. Anyway, question number 1. Are there problematic authors, transphobic, homophobic, racist, etc., that had a huge influence on your life? And how do you deal with knowing this in retrospect? I don't know necessarily if there have been any authors who've had necessarily a huge impact on my life. Books are entertaining, they're enlightening, they're informing, but I don't know necessarily if they've really done that sort of internal personality world building that the question implies. But there have been some books that have influenced you. Has influenced me, that I've who are problematic. Ian Fleming, the author of the James Bond series. I love how he creates his villains and how he sort of sets a scene up, and how he sort of hooks the reader. But he is definitely racist, even for the period. He was quite racist, particularly in James Bond series. If you read the original novels by Ian Fleming, oh boy. Yes. Bond was quite racist, extremely racist, homophobic, sexist, and almost certainly would have been transphobic, and on and on and on. And so how do I deal with that? I just recognize it. In this case, it's a matter of time. It's everybody was racist at that period, or of one degree or another, and so it's one thing to recognize that. Another thing is to recognize the Bond series for what it is, which is wish fulfillment of reactionary wish fulfillment that failed. And I could probably go on a bit more with that at some point if I really feel like it. Anyway, are there authors on your TBR, bookshelf, etc., who you know are problematic, transphobic, racist, homophobic? And how do you reconcile this? So I have Ian Fleming. He's quite racist. Agatha Christie, who I would say is a milder racist, but there are racist elements in her books. Basically, there's moments of racism or xenophobia in some of her books. In Death in the Air, one character has a completely racist reaction to Hercule Poirot because he's Belgian. And so, yeah. Although sometimes whether or not that's portraying the period or, internally held beliefs is one thing. Also, I have William Faulkner, who's racist. Paul Kruger, who's abusive to his romantic and partners and female friends. Anybody else do I have that I know of? Oh yes, David Eddings abused his adopted children. Marion Zimmer Bradley aided and abetted at, I think she actually participated in the sexual abuse of her children with her husband. Um, who else is there? Oh yeah, H. Rider Haggard's racist and a bit of imperialist. I think that's about it. I mean, I'm probably wrong. When as I'm going through my 2020 library tour, I'm probably pointing out people who, have problematic beliefs one way or another, and I'm not necessarily recognizing them because I don't know enough about the writers. So how do I reconcile this? I think to a certain extent it's a matter of how do you want to tackle these problematic writers. Do you want to just completely purge them, to just get them out of your life, to just read the books that work for you, that you want to read? And that's absolutely one's prerogative. I mean, the whole issue with cancel culture and problematic writers and how to approach them is, on an individual level, it's whatever the individual reader wants to do. One shouldn't be forced to read them because they're very, very important books and must be read to be a well-rounded individual. Nor should they be consigned to the book dungeon because they're written by shitty, toxic people. I mean, it's an individual choice, and I'm not terribly anyway. But how do I handle it? In some cases, I think I try to look at the work itself, divorced from the writer. I'm very much of the idea that the writer should be considered effectively dead when considering their work. I know not everybody can necessarily divorce or kill, theoretically speaking, the author. But I have that. I've basically created or built that sense where I can separate the writer from the work and judge the work on its own merits. Sometimes they're so deeply problematic. James Bond comes to mind. And in that situation, depending on how you interpret it, it's kind of fun to rip it to shreds. Depending how you look at it, it's maybe even more fun to rip it to shreds. Or even in one's own fiction, if you're a writer, to how do you turn that around? How do you turn the interpretation of this work, or this interpretation of this work, on its head? How do you turn it against this work? That's one thing about, with the sex rumor books, is drawing inspiration from that, maybe making Fu Manchu a hero, and his ex be a hero, and the Nyland Smith, or whoever the hell the detective person is, the villain. Anyway, but I do tend to subscribe more to the critical ideas of the death of the author, even though sometimes by biographical interpretations can be interesting as well. And really, one should not reject any interpretive strategy. Okay, where am I at here? Next question. Do you do specific research or check the background of authors you read or recommend, or even just mention regarding their politics? No. That's... No, I mean, I try to avoid that. If I'm looking up an author's website or Twitter or whatever, I'm more interested in when their next book's coming out and how the progress of that book's going rather than them going on Twitter rants, because sometimes one way or the other, yeah. I mean, I'm not interested because sometimes you're wanting to get into a fight with them. It's just not healthy. Anyway, next question. What does ethical consumption mean to you? I've never really heard that phrase, but I'm assuming that means trying as much as possible to be responsible with your purchases. So, say, talking about books, privileging or independent bookstores over the chain stores or Amazon. Like food shopping, it would be trying to focus more on individual farmers or farmers markets rather than the big grocery chains like Walmart or Target or the regional ones. I mean, on the one hand, it's a good idea. The bulk of my book buying comes from Amazon. But I have been trying to spread out. I bought a few books from a few independent bookstores locally, Fabled in Waco, Book People in Austin, although I don't think necessarily Book People really, it's doing pretty fine on its own. Given that if you order today, you're probably not actually going to get your order until well after Christmas because they're doing that well of a business. So, awesome Book People. And also pals. And of course, a lot of these independent bookstores are struggling. They have been struggling for years. And it's important, if possible, to help them out. But one problem I find is that as a primarily science fiction and fantasy reader, a lot of the books that I'm interested in, very likely they're not going to have in stock, and they will have to go through their distributor. So it's easier to go with the Evil Empire than locally. But I've been trying to buy more independent lately, and hopefully to continue in 2021. Okay, next question. Which or how many transgender and non-binary authors have you read? That I know of. I have read Yoon-Ha Lee. I will be reading K.M. Zabara. I have read J.Y. Yang or Neon Yang. They've since, I think, changed their name. Sarah M. Gailey. These are those that I know of. I'm pretty sure there are others, but again, I don't necessarily research this, so I'm not entirely sure. Is there a transgender and or non-binary author you really enjoyed or would like to mention? Or is there one on your TBR you are really excited about? Yoon-Ha Lee. Definitely Yoon-Ha Lee is a writer to look for. He is an amazing author. His Hexarchate series are wonderfully well done, and I'm looking forward to reading Phoenix Extravagant. Also, Kim Zapara. I'm a bit leery about Docile. I mean, mostly for the subject matter, but I'm interested in checking it out. Next question. How diverse is your bookshelf? And if you don't have a lot of books, your overall reading habits? I haven't really gone into it all that well. I would say, I mean, probably the vast majority are by white authors. And again, probably mostly male as well. I do have a few, I do have some internet African American authors, some Asian authors, some Latinx authors. But yeah, I think it is mostly white and male. Unfortunately, I will look. I've been looking at. I've been trying to certainly balance things out, but it is slow going. Given how many books I have. Anyway, okay, where is the next question? Do you specifically aim to read more diverse authors, especially trans and or non-binary authors? Yes. I would like to read more diversely, period. That, and I'm looking into more writers over the coming year. It depends what I find and who I find. And we'll see. Hopefully I can read more diversely. I certainly want to balance my reading gender-wise and increase the numbers of writers I read. And finally, boost some trans and non-binary and or queer booktubers or other diverse smaller booktubers. Oh, no, here comes my memory issues. Obviously, Hygen, the creator of this tag. Ghost Reader, Monty Price, Elias, Run Right Reads, Perpetual Pages, Audrey, yeah, and finally tag some people, especially cis allies. So I think everybody should do this tag. If you haven't done this tag, consider yourselves tagged. I would love to hear how all of BookTube handles problematic writers and/or books. So, new BookTube, thank you. Now I'm going to go upload these, and while I do that, I'm going to be watching some upcoming videos on upcoming science fiction and fantasy releases for 2021, and hopefully ballooning my Amazon wish list, even though I should be purging it. But I'll get around to that here soon too. Anyway, BookTube, so tomorrow I will begin with the literary fiction bookcase, and also hopefully I will have a writing video up, but I don't know. It'll probably be more of my struggles with writing. But anyway, BookTube, I'll leave it here. Thank you. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow. And until then, stay safe.